This is the most gruesome case that we're covering on this channel, so viewer discretion is advised. Now, the murders committed in February 1933 by the Papin sisters was appalling, to say the least, but the treatment they experienced as servants by the wealthy French family that they were working for made people see the case as a symbol for class struggle. Now, their names were Christine and Léa Papin, and on February the 2nd, 1933, they committed one of the gnarliest murders in the history of France. They ripped the eyes out of their victims, rendered their faces unrecognizable, and mutated their genitals. The poor people that suffered this horrendous death were the mother and daughter of the well-off family that employed them, Leonie and Genevieve. Now, the life inside the Lensland house, where Christine and Léa Papin worked as domestic servants for the retired lawyer. His name was René Lensland, his wife Leonie, and their grown daughter Genevieve. Now, the Lenslands lived in a beautiful two-story townhouse in the city of Le Mans. Now, by the outsiders' accounts, the family treated them well. They ate the same food as the family and lived in a heated room. And they were even paid at the standard wages of that time. Now, before the crimes, the professional comportment of the siblings was apparently excellent. In fact, the Lenslands were the envy for every French upper-class household for having such dedicated and hard-working domestic help. But, like always, it was not all as well in the Lensland house, as the sisters had an atypical relationship with their employers. For one, neither of the women had ever spoken to René Lensland in the entire 7 years that they worked there. The sisters were also only given orders by his wife, and even then, she only communicated through written notes. Now, Leonie was also a woman that demanded perfection, as she routinely performed the white glove test. This is a test that you do on furniture to confirm that the furniture had been dusted. On the day of the murders, it was dark and it was raining heavily, just a perfect environment for such a crime. After the shopping trip that the mother and the daughter was on, they were supposed to go directly to the home of Leonie's brother, where René would meet them. The family was also not expected to be home by the sisters until late in the evening, but the two siblings continued with their errands as usual, one of which was to pick up the iron from the repair shop. Now, when the iron was plugged into the electrical outlet, it blew a fuse. They decided to wait until the morning to try to repair the fuse, because they were under the impression that the Lenslands would not return home until late into the evening. But then Leonie and Genevieve returned home unexpectedly. According to Christine, when the mother was told that the iron was broken and that the electricity was out, she flew into a violent rage. Christine then smashed a pewter jug into the mother's head, which led to Genevieve to come to her mother's defense and attack Christine. Now, out of pure anger and rage, Christine shouted, "I'm going to massacre them." Léa then rushed down from the attic and proceeded to attack the mother, while Christine was edging her on, telling her to smash her head into the ground and tear her eyes out. And they continued with what they said they would do, which was to tear Genevieve's eyes straight from her face. Without their eyes, the mother and the daughter were basically rendered helpless. The sisters gathered a hammer, a knife, and a pewter pot, and struck blows into the victims until the mother and the daughter laid there silent. They continued with lifting up the skirts of the corpses, and then they began to cut into their buttocks and also their thighs. In one final gruesome act, the sisters blasted the mother with the daughter's menstruation blood. The two sisters cleaned themselves up after the gruesome act they just committed. They continued to lock every door in the house. They lit one singular candle in their room, and then they waited for the inevitable. Now, when his wife and daughter failed to show up for dinner, René Lensland returned home with one of his friends. They found all of the doors locked and the house in pitch darkness. René contacted the police, who broke into the townhouse. After the two sisters were found with no clothes on in bed together, they immediately confessed to the double murder. They claimed that it was done in self-defense, as Christine Papin simply said, "It was her or us." Léa told the police, "From now on, I am deaf and I am dumb." Now, this gruesome case of the Papin sisters also attracted the interest of intellectuals, which are very smart and intelligent people. I know what you're thinking, why would intellectuals be interested in such a case? Now, intellectuals of that time, they argued a lot that the murders were the manifestation of the class struggle. Now, they believed believe that the girls rebelled against their mean-spirited masters, which reflected in the poor conditions under which the people who worked as servants to the rich lived. Now, there was a couple of prominent intellectuals that held up this crime as an example of class warfare. Now, the defense also ended up arguing that the sisters were temporarily insane during the time of the murder. They spoke about a cousin who died in an asylum, a grandfather prone to violent attacks of temper, and an uncle who committed suicide, as a way of explaining of them moving towards insanity. Now, after the whole court case, the court decided that the Papin sisters were indeed sane and therefore guilty for the acts. While Christine waited in a holding cell for a punishment, she became unhinged and tried to claw her eyes out. She was then put in a straitjacket, while a sentence was commuted to life in prison, but soon she began to starve herself and died as a result in 1937. Now, for the other hand, Léa Papin was released after 8 years on good behavior in 1941. She then went to reside with her mother and lived a long and a quiet life under an assumed name. The story of the Papin sisters are really a mixture of horror and fascination, but the sad part is nobody will ever know the real true story of these two mentally disturbed sisters.